Delete the footage!
Rain hammered against the massive windows of Kang Yi-hyuk's mansion, while laughter filled the private lounge upstairs. Expensive whiskey flowed across the table. Cigarette smoke curled through the dim room. Some of the most dangerous men in Seoul relaxed comfortably around their feared boss after finishing a brutal business meeting. One man poured another drink and smirked. "So, boss, when are you finally getting married?" The room chuckled immediately. Yi-hyuk leaned back lazily on the leather sofa, his sharp jaw resting against one hand. Even sitting still, he carried the kind of presence that made people nervous, cold, handsome, untouchable. Marriage was the last thing on his mind. Another man laughed. "At this rate, the Dragon Syndicate bloodline will end with you." Yi-hyuk smirked faintly before taking a slow sip of whiskey. He said carelessly, "I'll marry the first woman stupid enough to clean another person's trash." The room exploded with laughter. One guard slapped the table. "That woman doesn't exist," added, "not around rich people." Before the laughter fully died down, one of the younger security guards frowned at the CCTV monitor near the wall. "Boss," nobody paid attention. The guard stared harder at the screen, then he laughed nervously. "You might want to see this." Yi-hyuk barely looked interested. "What?" The guard pointed at the monitor. The room slowly quieted. Outside the mansion gates, under cold pouring rain, a heavyset black woman bent down beside an elderly cleaner struggling with torn garbage bags, food containers scattered across the sidewalk, napkins soaked in rainwater, broken bottles everywhere. Luxury guests walked past without helping, but the woman quietly placed her own bag down and started picking up the trash herself. One bottle, one napkin, one filthy bag at a time. The old cleaner looked close to tears. Even through blurry security footage, her exhaustion was obvious, yet she still helped. The room went silent for 2 seconds, then one man burst out laughing. "Oh no," nearly choked on his drink. "Boss," he wheezed, "looks like fate answered fast." More laughter exploded around the room. "There's your future wife. She's actually cleaning the trash." "Oh, this is too good." Yi-hyuk's expression darkened immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on the screen. The woman's oversized sweater clung to her body from the rain. Her curls looked damp and messy. She was clearly exhausted after a long day, yet she kept helping quietly, without asking for attention, without expecting reward. One of the guards laughed harder. "She's definitely not your type," boss smirked. "You better start shopping for rings." The men laughed again, but Yi-hyuk didn't. Something about the woman irritated him in a way he couldn't explain, not because she was helping, not because of how she looked, but because she seemed genuine. And people like that made him uncomfortable. The old cleaner bowed repeatedly while she tied the final garbage bag shut. Even from the CCTV footage, her smile looked warm, human, real. Yi-hyuk suddenly stood up. The room fell silent instantly. "Delete the footage," he said coldly. Nobody moved for a second, then the guard quickly nodded. "Yes, boss." The screen switched away. The laughter slowly disappeared. But as Yi-hyuk walked toward the window, he stopped. For some reason, he looked back at the dark monitor one last time. Outside, the woman picked up her bag and disappeared into the rain without knowing she had just become the center of conversation inside one of the most dangerous homes in Korea. And without knowing the most feared mafia boss in Seoul would think about her long after she vanished. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with drama, romance, shocking glow-ups, and powerful revenge moments, subscribe to the channel now, because this story is only getting started. 3 months later, Amara Cole rubbed her aching feet while standing inside the tiny stockroom of the community center where she worked. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while old cleaning supplies filled the cramped shelves around her. It was almost midnight. Again, her manager poked his head through the doorway. "Amara, before you leave, can you finish stacking the chairs in Hall B?" She blinked tiredly. "I already cleaned Hall B." "I know, but the volunteers forgot to stack everything." Looked down for a second, every muscle in her body hurt. She had worked 12 hours already, but she still forced a polite smile. "Okay." Manager disappeared without another word. No thank you, no apology, just more work. Amara slowly tied her curls back tighter before walking toward the large hall. Rows of metal chairs waited for her. She sighed quietly. "Lord, give me strength." An hour later, sweat rolled down her neck while she pushed the final stack across the floor. Her phone buzzed inside her pocket. Denise, Amara answered breathlessly. Hey, girl, are you still at work? Yes. Denise groaned loudly through the phone. They're killing you in that place. Amara laughed weakly. Not yet. You say that now. Amara grabbed her water bottle. I just need this skincare business to finally grow. Denise softened slightly. Many orders today. Amara paused. 2. Was silence. Then Denise said carefully, still better than 0, leaned against the stacked chairs and closed her eyes. Sometimes she wondered if she was foolish for still believing things could change. Cole Aura. That little skincare business was the only dream she truly owned. Handmade body butter, natural oils, healing creams, every product made from scratch inside her tiny apartment kitchen after exhausting work shifts. She didn't have investors, didn't have connections, didn't have beauty privilege. Most days it felt like screaming into emptiness, but quitting would hurt worse. I'll be okay, Amara whispered. Denise sighed. You always say that, because it's true. Hanging up, Amara grabbed her bag and finally left the building. Cold air brushed against her skin outside. The streets were quieter now. She started the long walk home while scrolling through her online store notifications. No new orders. Again. Amara swallowed disappointment and kept walking. Up ahead, bright lights suddenly filled the street. Black luxury cars lined the road outside a massive hotel while reporters crowded near the entrance. People whispered excitedly. That's Kang Yi-hyuk, the Mafia boss. He's terrifying in person. Amara frowned slightly. Then she saw him, tall, sharp black suit, cold expression. Even surrounded by bodyguards, he stood out immediately. Women stared openly. Men stepped aside automatically. Power followed him naturally. Amara recognized him instantly from news articles and gossip videos online. Kang Yi-hyuk, the rumored leader of the Dragon Syndicate, the same mansion owner from the night she helped the cleaner. Though she had no idea he remembered her existence, she lowered her head quickly and kept walking. People like him lived in another universe entirely. But as she passed the hotel entrance, Yi-hyuk suddenly looked in her direction. Their eyes met briefly, only for a second. Amara looked away immediately and continued walking, but Yi-hyuk remained still. Something about her felt familiar, very familiar, his bodyguard noticed. Boss. Yi-hyuk's eyes narrowed slightly as Amara disappeared down the sidewalk. Then he shook the thought away coldly. Nothing. The car moments later, Minseok glanced carefully at him. You seem distracted tonight. Not. Minseok hesitated, then spoke cautiously. You're still watching the footage, aren't you? Yi-hyuk's expression hardened instantly. Silence filled the car. Minseok immediately looked forward again. My mistake, boss. The truth was obvious. Almost every night for 3 months, Yi-hyuk replayed the CCTV footage secretly. At first, he told himself it was curiosity, then fascination. Now, he didn't know anymore. There was something deeply unsettling about a person helping others when nobody was watching. In Yi-hyuk's world, kindness always came with hidden motives, power, money, manipulation. But that woman, Amara, she gained nothing, and somehow that bothered him more than violence ever could. Yi-hyuk sat alone in his office long after midnight while the city lights glowed outside the massive glass windows behind him. The CCTV footage played again, and again, and again. Amara bent down beside the old cleaner, lifting soaked garbage bags with tired hands while rain poured over her sweater. Yi-hyuk leaned back slowly in his chair. Something about the footage unsettled him deeply. Not because of the woman herself, but because she looked sincere in a way he had not seen in years. No cameras. No audience. No reward. Just kindness in his world. Kindness was always fake. Everyone wanted something, money, protection, power. But her, she simply helped and walked away. Yi-hyuk rubbed his jaw irritably before shutting the video off. This is ridiculous, he muttered. Yet 10 seconds later, he replayed it again. A knock interrupted the silence. Minseok stepped carefully into the office. Boss, the Osaka clients arrived. Yi-hyuk closed the laptop immediately. Handle them. Minseok hesitated slightly. You've barely slept this week, I said. Handle it. Minseok nodded quickly. But before leaving, he glanced briefly toward the dark laptop screen. He already knew what was on it. The entire mansion staff knew by now. Their terrifying boss had become obsessed with a random woman from CCTV footage. Nobody understood why. Honestly, Yi-hyuk didn't understand either. Meanwhile, across the city, Amara stood inside her tiny apartment kitchen filling small glass jars while soft gospel music played from her phone speaker. The clock read 2:17 a.m. Her eyes burned from exhaustion. Still, she carefully sealed another jar and attached a label, Cole Aura Whipped Shea Recovery Cream. The apartment smelled like cocoa butter and lavender oil. Denise sat at the counter scrolling through Amara's online shop page. "You know what your problem is?" Denise asked suddenly. Amara sighed. "Ask me that every day. Because every day you ignore the answer," smiled weakly without looking up. "And what's the answer today? You're scared to be seen." Amara finally paused. Denise continued. "You make amazing products. Everybody who buys them loves them, but you hide yourself online like some secret." Amara shrugged quietly. "Nobody wants to see me." "That's a lie." Amara looked away. Denise lowered the phone. "You already reject yourself before anybody else gets the chance." The words landed painfully. Because deep down, Amara feared they were true. Life had a way of teaching certain people to stay invisible, especially women who looked like her, too dark, too heavy, too ordinary. At least that's what society constantly whispered. Amara placed another jar into a shipping box carefully. "Just tired," she admitted softly. Denise's expression softened immediately. "Come here." Amara laughed tiredly. "Start being emotional." "Come here anyway." Walked around the counter while Denise pulled her into a hug. "You deserve beautiful things too," Denise whispered. For a second, Amara nearly cried. But she swallowed the emotion quickly. Crying changed nothing. The next morning, Yi Hyuk arrived at a luxury hotel for a private meeting with foreign investors. Bodyguards surrounded him instantly. People moved out of his path automatically. Power followed him everywhere. As he walked through the lobby, a young woman accidentally bumped into him. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She looked horrified immediately. Yi Hyuk barely glanced at her, but before security could shove the woman away, another voice spoke nearby. It was an accident. Yi Hyuk froze slightly. That voice. He turned immediately. Across the lobby stood Amara. She wore a simple blue dress and carried several shopping bags while speaking calmly to the frightened woman. "It's okay," Amara continued gently. "Nobody died." The nervous woman nodded gratefully before hurrying away. Amara looked up and locked eyes with Yi Hyuk. Recognition flashed across his face instantly. Her expression stayed blank. She clearly had no idea who he was. Yi Hyuk stared harder. She looked different in person than on CCTV, still plus-sized. Still ordinary by society's standards, but her eyes warm, intelligent, steady. Nothing about her begged for attention. That alone fascinated him. Amara gave him a polite nod before continuing toward the exit. Yi Hyuk turned suddenly. "Wait." She stopped. Slowly, she looked back. "Yes." For some reason, Yi Hyuk forgot what he planned to say. "That never happened, ever." Amara waited politely. Finally, he asked, "Have we met before?" She frowned slightly while studying his face, then shook her head. "I don't think so." Just like that, she walked away. Yi Hyuk remained standing in the middle of the lobby while investors and bodyguards waited around him awkwardly. Min Seok stepped closer carefully. "Boss." Yi Hyuk's jaw tightened. For the first time since taking control of the Dragon Syndicate, he felt invisible himself. That irritated him more than he expected. Later that night, Amara sat at her small desk reviewing online orders when her phone buzzed unexpectedly. "Unknown number," she answered cautiously. "Hello, Miss Cole?" "Yes, this is Hanseong Luxury Spa." Amara blinked in confusion. "Okay, we received your skincare samples last month." Her eyes widened instantly. "My God." The woman laughed softly. "Director loved them. We'd like to place a larger order if possible." Amara nearly dropped the phone. "A larger order?" "Yes, 500 units to start." Silence, complete silence. Denise stared from across the room in confusion. Amara's voice cracked slightly. 500, if that's two," Amara shouted quickly. "No, I can do it." The call ended. She simply stood frozen. Denise rushed over immediately. "What happened?" Amara stared at the phone in disbelief. "I think my life just changed." Denise screamed so loudly the upstairs neighbor started banging on the ceiling. The next few weeks became chaos, beautiful chaos. Amara barely slept. She worked community center shifts during the day and produced skincare products all night. Orders exploded online after Hanseong Spa promoted Cole Aura products on social media. For the first time, customers wanted not only her products, but her story. Amara hated posting photos online at first, but Denise forced her. "People connect with authenticity," Denise insisted. "I look exhausted." "You look real." Slowly, followers increased, then doubled, then tripled. Women loved her honesty, loved her warmth, loved her products. For the first time in years, Amara felt visible. Meanwhile, Yi Hyuk found himself searching her name online late at night. Amara Cole Aura. He watched interviews secretly, listened to podcasts, read customer comments. One video held his attention longer than expected. A host asked Amara, "What inspired your brand?" Amara smiled thoughtfully. "I spent years feeling invisible," she admitted softly. "I wanted women to feel cared for even during their worst moments." Yi Hyuk stared silently at the screen. Invisible, the word sat heavily in his chest. Because somehow, he understood exactly what she meant now. Another clip played, the interviewer laughed. "You're becoming very successful very quickly." Amara smiled humbly. "I'm grateful. Honestly, I'm still shocked people notice me at all." Something twisted painfully inside Yi Hyuk hearing that sentence, because he remembered his own reaction watching her on CCTV. The dismissal, the coldness, the shame. He suddenly shut the laptop closed, annoyed with himself, annoyed with her. Annoyed with the strange guilt crawling under his skin. Weeks later, Amara attended a luxury skincare networking event for the first time. She nearly turned around twice before entering. Everything looked expensive. Elegant women filled the ballroom wearing designer dresses and polished smiles. Amara adjusted her black gown nervously. "You belong here," Denise whispered beside her. "I feel like an imposter." "Stop saying that." They moved deeper into the ballroom. Conversation slowly shifted. People recognized her. "Wait, that's Amara Cole Aura founder. I love her recovery cream." Amara blinked in surprise every single time. Meanwhile, upstairs in a private VIP section, Yi Hyuk listened absently while businessmen discussed investments. Then he heard her laugh below. His head lifted instantly. Before he even saw her, he knew. Yi Hyuk stood slowly and walked toward the balcony railing overlooking the ballroom floor. Then he froze. Amara stood below in a fitted black dress, speaking confidently with luxury brand executives. Her makeup was elegant, her posture stronger, her smile brighter. And for the first time since seeing her, Yi Hyuk realized she was beautiful, not potentially beautiful. After weight loss, beautiful. Now, the realization hit him hard enough to irritate him immediately. One investor beside him noticed. "You know Amara Cole?" Yi Hyuk answered without thinking. "No." His eyes never left her. Downstairs, Amara suddenly glanced upward. Their eyes met again. This time recognition flickered slightly across her face. She tilted her head carefully, like she almost remembered him from somewhere. Yi Hyuk's pulse slowed strangely. Then a tall businessman stepped beside Amara and kissed her hand flirtatiously. She laughed warmly. Yi Hyuk's expression darkened instantly. The investor beside him chuckled. Men are already fighting over her attention tonight. Something ugly moved quietly inside Yi Hyuk's chest. Jealousy, and for the first time in years, the mighty Kang Yi Hyuk absolutely hated what he was feeling. Yi Hyuk couldn't explain why the sight of another man touching Amara's hand bothered him so much. It shouldn't have mattered. She was a stranger, a random woman from old CCTV footage, nothing more. Yet while the businessman leaned close whispering something that made Amara laugh again, irritation crawled deeper under Yi Hyuk's skin. The investor beside him smirked knowingly. She's becoming popular very fast. Every luxury brand in Seoul wants to work with her now. Yi Hyuk's voice turned cold. Investor blinked. Because women trust her, she feels authentic. He shrugged lightly. That's rare in business. Authentic, that word again. Yi Hyuk looked down at Amara once more. Unlike everybody else in the ballroom, she wasn't trying too hard. The rich women around her carried polished fake smiles and rehearsed laughter. But Amara looked natural even while nervous, and somehow that made her stand out more than anyone else. Downstairs, Amara finally excused herself from the businessman and headed toward the balcony hallway for fresh air. The second she stepped outside, cool wind brushed against her face. "Thank God," she muttered quietly, her heels hurt. Her social battery was dying, and pretending confidence for 3 straight hours felt exhausting. "You look uncomfortable." Jumped slightly. Yi Hyuk stood near the railing behind her with both hands inside his pockets. His black suit fit him perfectly, sharp, elegant. Dangerous, Amara recognized him immediately now. The hotel man, the strangely intense man who kept staring at her. She forced a polite smile. "Do I?" "Yes," she laughed softly, "that obvious to me." Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Amara folded her arms carefully. "You've been staring at me all night," Yi Hayek answered honestly. Most men would deny it. That caught her off guard. She studied him quietly for a second. "You're very direct." "I don't like wasting words." Amara smiled slightly. "That sounds exhausting for everybody around you." For the first time all night, amusement flickered across Yi Hayek's face, small, quick, but real. Amara noticed immediately. He looked different when he almost smiled. Less terrifying, still dangerous though. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara." His chest tightened hearing her say it aloud. Amara frowned slightly. "You already knew that, didn't you?" Yi Hayek paused. "Yes." "Then why ask?" Because he liked hearing her voice say it. But he couldn't admit that. Instead he said, "I wanted to hear you tell me." Honesty in his answer unsettled her slightly. Most rich, powerful men she encountered lately spoke like they were performing. But this man, everything about him felt controlled yet strangely sincere at the same time. "Okay," she said slowly. "Then what's your name?" For a moment he simply looked at her, almost curious, like nobody had asked him that in a long time. "Kang Yi Hayek." Amara's eyes widened immediately. Oh. Now she knew exactly who he was. Everybody in Seoul knew that name. Even if the rumors about him changed depending on who told the story: business genius, crime boss, monster, kingmaker. Amara suddenly felt very aware of being alone on a balcony with him. Yi Hayek noticed instantly. "You're afraid now." "No," she lied. His eyes narrowed slightly. "You were more comfortable before you knew who I was." Looked away toward the city lights. "That's usually how power works." Settled briefly between them. Then Yi Hayek asked quietly, "Why did you help that old cleaner?" Amara blinked, her head turned slowly toward him. "What?" "The night outside my mansion." Her heart skipped once. "You saw that?" "I watched it happen." Amara looked genuinely embarrassed now. "God, why are you?" "I looked horrible." Yi Hayek stared at her carefully. That answer bothered him deeply. Out of everything that happened that night, that was what she remembered, not the kindness, not helping someone, just how she looked. "You weren't horrible," he said quietly. Amara laughed awkwardly. "You don't have to lie." "I don't lie." Their eyes locked again. Something shifted heavily in the air between them. Dangerous, slow, magnetic. Amara broke eye contact first. "Well, now you know the answer." "No," Yi Hayek replied calmly. "I don't." She frowned. "I helped because he needed help. Simple. Yes." He looked almost frustrated by her answer. People always wanted something, always. But Amara kept acting like goodness came naturally. Yi Hayek didn't know what to do with that. Before either could speak again, Denise suddenly appeared through the balcony doors. "There you are." She stopped immediately after noticing Yi Hayek. Her eyes widened. Amara smiled quickly. "Denise, this is Kang Yi Hayek." Denise finished nervously. Yi Hayek nodded once. Denise grabbed Amara's arm immediately. "We need to leave before my feet file a lawsuit." Amara laughed. "Fair enough." She prepared to walk away. Yi Hayek spoke suddenly. "Amara." She turned back. "I'd like to see you again." Direct, simple, dangerously intense. Denise's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Amara blinked slowly. "You barely know me." "I know enough." Her pulse betrayed her slightly. Still, she kept her voice calm. "Good night, Mr. Kang." Then she walked away with Denise before he could answer. The second the balcony doors closed, Denise grabbed both of Amara's shoulders violently. "What was that?" Amara burst out laughing. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." "I really don't." Denise looked horrified. "That man looked at you like he wanted to fight everybody else in the room." Amara shook her head. "You're dramatic." "No, I'm observant." Meanwhile, upstairs, Minseok approached carefully while Yi Hayek continued staring toward the ballroom doors where Amara disappeared. "You spoke to her?" "Yes." And Yi Hayek stayed quiet for a moment, then finally said, "She's dangerous." Minseok nearly choked. "Dangerous? She makes me forget myself." That answer disturbed Minseok far more than anger ever could. Because Kang Yi Hayek never lost control, ever. Over the next few months, Cole aura exploded. Beauty influencers promoted Amara's products online. Luxury spas requested partnerships. Celebrities posted reviews. Orders flooded faster than she could handle. One afternoon, Amara stood frozen inside a large warehouse space while a real estate agent smiled proudly. "This would become your primary production center." Amara whispered, "Mine." The agent smiled. "If you want it." Amara slowly turned in circles, staring at the massive open building. 6 months ago, she mixed body butter inside a tiny apartment kitchen. Now investors competed for meetings with her. The success felt unreal. But what shocked her more was who kept appearing quietly in the background of her life. Kang Yi Hayek. Flowers arrived anonymously after stressful interviews. Massive charity donations appeared under Cole Aura campaigns. Exclusive invitations somehow landed in her hands. She knew it was him. Especially after the black orchids started arriving every single week. No card, no message. As flowers, Denise narrowed her eyes while examining another bouquet. That man is obsessed with you. Amara rolled her eyes. He's not obsessed. Amara, these flowers probably cost more than my rent. Amara laughed softly but said nothing, because part of her knew Denise was right, and honestly, that terrified her. One rainy evening, Amara exited her office building carrying folders against her chest when headlights suddenly flashed nearby. A black luxury car waited across the street. The rear door opened slowly. Yi Hyuk stepped out holding an umbrella. Amara stopped walking immediately. Rain poured around him while his dark coat moved gently in the wind. Even standing silently, he commanded attention. He walked toward her calmly. "You work too late." Amara blinked. "Did you just appear out of nowhere to criticize my schedule? You look tired. So do you." A small smile touched his mouth, again quick and rare. "I wanted to see you." Her heart betrayed her stupidly. Rain splashed harder across the sidewalk while he stepped closer, holding the umbrella above both of them now. People passed nearby pretending not to stare. Amara looked up carefully. "Me?" Yi Hyuk's expression shifted slightly. "Why are you asking like that?" "Because men like you don't usually notice women like me." Second the words left her mouth, silence fell heavily between them. Yi Hyuk's jaw tightened immediately. "Women like you?" Amara shrugged awkwardly. "You know what I mean." "No," he said coldly. "Explain it," she sighed softly. "Powerful men usually want women who already fit perfectly into their world." "You think you don't?" Amara laughed quietly. "I know I don't." Yi Hyuk stared at her for several long seconds, then spoke carefully. "When I first saw you," he stopped himself. Amara waited, but he changed direction. "You stood out because you were real." She looked surprised. "People are usually the realist," she said softly. That sentence hit him harder than she realized, because it was true. Everybody performed around him, feared him, wanted something from him. But Amara never did, even now, especially now. A black car suddenly pulled up beside the curb nearby. Minseok stepped out quickly. "Boss, we need to leave." The urgency in his voice changed the atmosphere instantly. Yi Hyuk's expression darkened slightly. Amara noticed immediately. Business. Danger. That other side of his life. She stepped back carefully from beneath the umbrella. "You should go." Yi Hyuk looked irritated by the distance. "Should really go." For the first time, uncertainty flickered briefly across his face. Then he nodded once. Before entering the car, he looked back at her standing alone in the rain, and realized something terrifying. He no longer wanted to watch her through screens. He wanted her inside his life. And Kang Yi Hyuk always became dangerous when he desired something too deeply. The first time Amara saw blood on Yi Hyuk's shirt, she understood exactly why people feared him. It happened 2 weeks after the rainy night outside her office. Cole Aura had officially launched its first luxury retail partnership, and reporters crowded the entrance of the department store waiting for Amara to arrive. Flashbulbs exploded the second she stepped out of the car. "Amara. Over here. How does it feel becoming Seoul's fastest-growing beauty founder? Are the rumors true about American investors?" Amara smiled politely while security guided her toward the entrance. Inside, elegant displays filled the store with soft gold lighting while giant digital screens showcased Cole Aura products across the walls. Seeing her brand displayed like that nearly made her emotional. Months ago, she could barely afford ingredients. Now women lined up just to meet her. Denise squeezed her hand excitedly. "You did this." Amara laughed nervously. "I still feel like somebody going to wake me up." "Better stay asleep then." The crowd laughed warmly. But before the ribbon-cutting ceremony could begin, movement near the back entrance suddenly caught everyone's attention. Men in black suits rushed through the hallway quickly. Then Yi Hyuk appeared. The atmosphere changed instantly. People moved out of his path automatically. Fear traveled faster than whispers. Amara's smile faded slightly. Something was wrong, very wrong. Yi Hyuk wore a dark overcoat, but even from several feet away, she noticed blood staining the white cuff near his wrist. Fresh blood. His face remained calm as always, but tension rolled off him heavily. The reporters immediately started murmuring. "Why is Kang Yi Hyuk here? Did something happen? Look at his hand." Yi Hyuk ignored everyone except Amara. He walked straight toward her. Her pulse quickened immediately. When he finally stopped in front of her, the entire room felt silent despite hundreds of people standing around them. "You came," she said quietly. His eyes softened slightly. "I told you I would." Amara lowered her voice. "You're bleeding." Yi Hayek glanced down briefly like he forgot about it. "It's nothing." "That doesn't look like nothing." One corner of his mouth lifted faintly. "You sound worried." "I am worried." The words escaped before she could stop them. Both of them noticed. Yi Hayek's expression changed instantly, something warmer. More vulnerable, Amara quickly looked away. "Sit down before you scare my customers." Denise nearly fainted internally watching the interaction, because Kang Yi Hayek, the same man politicians feared, actually obeyed, without argument, without attitude. He quietly sat in the VIP lounge while Amara grabbed a first aid kit herself. The reporters nearly lost their minds taking pictures. Inside the private room, Amara carefully rolled his sleeve upward. The cut across his arm looked deep. "What happened?" "Work." "That's not an answer." Yi Hayek watched her clean the blood silently. Most people trembled touching him. Amara looked annoyed instead. "I need stitches," he admitted finally. "You think?" A small laugh escaped him unexpectedly. Amara froze slightly. "You laugh sometimes. That's terrifying." For the first time in years, Yi Hayek genuinely smiled, not the cold smirk people feared, a real smile, and somehow it made him even more dangerous. Amara's heart betrayed her again. She hated that. "You should go to a hospital." "I already came here first." Gaze locked onto hers. "Because I wanted to see you." Silence filled the room heavily. Amara swallowed carefully. Men like Yi Hayek didn't say things lightly. That made every word more dangerous. Before she could answer, Minsiak entered hurriedly. "Boss, we have a situation." Warmth disappeared from Yi Hayek's face immediately. Cold steel returned. Amara noticed the transformation instantly. Unsettled her deeply how quickly he changed. Yi Hayek stood slowly. "I'll handle it." Minsiak glanced nervously toward Amara. "Now would be best." Yi Hayek looked back at Amara one last time. Then his eyes dropped briefly to her hand still holding bloody gauze. Something flickered across his expression, regret. Because for one small moment sitting beside her felt normal, human. And he realized how badly he wanted more of that feeling. After he left, Denise rushed into the room dramatically. "Oh my God." Amara exhaled slowly. "What? That man is gone." "What are you talking about?" "He looks at you like you're oxygen." Amara laughed nervously. "You exaggerate everything." "No," Denise whispered. "I really don't." That night, Yi Hayek stood inside an abandoned warehouse while one of his men knelt bleeding on the floor. The atmosphere felt deadly. Another syndicate had attacked one of their shipments earlier that evening. Normally, Yi Hayek handled betrayal calmly. Tonight, he was furious, not because of business. Because the violence interrupted his time with Amara, and that realization disgusted him. The kneeling man trembled. "Boss, please." Yi Hayek stared down coldly. "You endangered my people." "It wasn't intentional." Yi Hayek grabbed the man's chin suddenly. "Intent doesn't matter." The warehouse fell silent. Everybody waited for blood, for punishment, for the monster they knew. But then Yi Hayek suddenly released him. "Fix your mistake." The men nearby blinked in shock. Mercy from him. The kneeling man nearly collapsed crying. "Yes, boss. Thank you, boss." As Yi Hayek walked away, Minsiak followed carefully. "You've changed." Yi Hayek didn't answer, but deep down he knew Minsiak was right. Amara softened parts of him he buried years ago, and honestly, that terrified him more than enemies with guns. A month later, Cole Aura hosted its first major charity gala supporting women rebuilding their lives after emotional abuse and homelessness. The event dominated social media all week. Celebrities attended. Business elites donated millions. And Amara stood at the center of it all looking radiant in a fitted white gown that made the entire ballroom stare openly. Yi Hayek arrived late. The second he entered the ballroom, his eyes found her instantly. Like always, Amara laughed while speaking with guests near the stage, confident now. Comfortable, glowing, not invisible anymore. And somehow that realization filled Yi Hayek with both pride and pain. Because he remembered exactly how easily he dismissed her once. Across the ballroom, several wealthy men competed for her attention openly. One touched her lower back while speaking. Another handed her champagne personally. Yi Hayek's jaw tightened harder with every second. Minsiak sighed quietly beside him. "You're doing that thing again." "Thing?" Looking homicidal. Yi Hayek ignored him completely. Then things became worse. A famous young billionaire named Lee Min-jun stepped onto the stage unexpectedly holding a microphone. The room quieted quickly. Min-jun smiled warmly toward Amara. "Before tonight ends, there's something I'd like to say publicly." Amara looked confused. Yi Hyuk immediately hated him. The billionaire continued smiling. "Amara Cole is one of the most inspiring women I've ever met." The crowd applauded politely. Yi Hyuk's expression darkened further. Min-jun walked down from the stage slowly while maintaining eye contact with Amara. "Because life is short." "Oh no," Denise whispered immediately. "This man is about to die. I'd like to ask Miss Amara Cole to dinner." Ballroom erupted into excited reactions. Cameras turned instantly. Amara blinked in surprise. Min-jun extended his hand confidently. "Just dinner," he added smoothly. Everybody watched Amara, but one person watched Yi Hyuk, and Min-seok immediately realized disaster was coming. Because Kang Yi Hyuk looked furious, not cold, not annoyed, furious. Before Amara could answer, Yi Hyuk suddenly started walking forward. The room shifted immediately. People moved aside automatically as the feared Mafia boss crossed the ballroom floor with terrifying calmness. Min-jun noticed him approaching and slowly lowered his hand. Yi Hyuk stopped directly beside Amara, close enough to make the tension obvious. His voice remained calm, too calm. "She's busy." Entire ballroom froze. Amara looked up at him in shock. Min-jun forced an awkward laugh. "With respect, I think Miss Cole can answer for herself." Yi Hyuk's eyes moved toward him slowly, deadly slowly. "She can," he agreed quietly. "Then let her." Silence, heavy. Dangerous silence. Amara immediately understood something terrifying. Yi Hyuk was jealous, actually jealous. And judging by the fear spreading around the room, everybody else realized it too. She quickly stepped between the two men before things escalated further. "Mr. Lee," she said calmly, "thank you for the invitation." Yi Hyuk's jaw flexed instantly. "I'll have to decline." Relief flashed across Min-jun's face immediately. "Of course," he said quickly. "No pressure," practically escaped afterward. The second he disappeared, Amara grabbed Yi Hyuk's arm hard. "Outside, now." Ballroom exploded into whispers behind them while she dragged him toward a private terrace. The second the doors shut behind them, Amara turned around sharply. "What was that?" Yi Hyuk looked completely unbothered. "He was flirting with you, so I didn't like it," stared at him in disbelief. "You don't get to scare people because you're jealous." "I wasn't scaring him," she laughed incredulously. That man looked ready to update his will. Yi Hyuk stepped closer slowly. "You?" Amara's breath caught slightly. "What about me? Are you scared of me?" The question sounded dangerously sincere, not arrogant, not threatening. Almost vulnerable, Amara looked directly into his eyes, and for the first time since meeting him, she answered honestly. "A little." For a moment, Yi Hyuk looked genuinely wounded by her answer. Not angry, not offended, wounded. Rain clouds rolled slowly across the night sky above the terrace while distant music from the gala echoed behind the closed doors. Amara crossed her arms tightly. "You terrify everybody around you," she said softly. "You walk into rooms and people stop breathing." Yi Hyuk held her gaze quietly. "And just told you," stepped closer. "You still stay." Her heartbeat stumbled once. That was the problem. Every instinct told her Kang Yi Hyuk was dangerous, not just because of the rumors, not because of the violence surrounding his world, but because he looked at her too intensely, like she mattered too much already. Amara exhaled slowly. "You can't keep doing things like that." "Like what?" Acting possessive. Expression barely changed. "I am possessive. That's not romantic." "I didn't say it was." Amara rubbed her forehead tiredly. Talking to him sometimes felt impossible because he answered everything too honestly. Most people hid their uglier emotions. Yi Hyuk simply admitted them. "That billionaire was harmless," she continued. "He wanted you." So, silence. Then Yi Hyuk asked quietly, "Do you want him?" The question carried more emotion than she expected. Not dominance, fear, actual fear. Amara stared at him carefully. And suddenly she understood something that unsettled her deeply. Kang Yi Hyuk truly cared what she thought. Enough to lose control publicly, enough to embarrass himself, enough to fear rejection. That realization softened her slightly against her own better judgment. "You're impossible," she muttered. A faint smile touched his mouth. "You didn't answer." Looked away toward the city lights, she admitted quietly. "I don't want him." Something dangerous flickered behind Yi Hyuk's eyes immediately. Relief, possession, hope. And somehow all three terrified her. Before either could say more, the terrace doors opened suddenly. Denise stepped outside, holding her heels in one hand. "There you are," she stopped immediately after seeing their faces. Amara cleared her throat quickly. "We were talking." Denise stared between them suspiciously. "It looks intense." It was. Yi Hyuk's eyes never left Amara. Denise noticed instantly and mentally screamed, because that man looked completely gone, finished, ruined. Over the next several weeks, the entire city began noticing the strange shift in Kang Yi Hyuk. He attended charity events now, donated publicly, stopped disappearing competitors as violently as before. Even his own men seemed confused. Inside Dragon Syndicate headquarters, two guards whispered nervously near the elevators. "Did you hear boss canceled the Busan retaliation?" "Yeah, that's not normal." "No kidding." Guard lowered his voice further. "This is because of that woman, isn't it?" Everybody knew exactly which woman, Amara Cole, the woman who somehow softened the most feared man in Seoul. Meanwhile, Amara tried desperately to ignore how deeply Yi Hyuk was becoming part of her life. He sent food whenever she skipped meals, remembered tiny details she mentioned once casually, appeared during stressful moments without explanation. Worst of all, he listened, actually listened. One evening, they sat alone inside her office after midnight while reviewing charity partnership proposals. Amara stretched tiredly. Brain is melting. Yi Hyuk glanced up from the paperwork. "You've worked 14 hours. "So have you. That's different." "Used to it." Amara laughed softly. "That's unhealthy." Settled comfortably between them, comfortably that scared her most. Yi Hyuk suddenly looked toward a framed Cole Aura photo on the wall showing Amara months earlier during her first product launch. She looked heavier in the picture, less polished, more uncertain, but her smile looked genuine. "You looked happy there," he said quietly. Amara followed his gaze. "I was terrified." "You hid it well." "I've had practice." Yi Hyuk studied her carefully. "Who taught you to make yourself smaller?" The question hit harder than she expected. Amara looked down slowly. "That's a heavy question for midnight." "Serious." She stayed quiet for several long seconds, then finally spoke. "You ever walk into a room and immediately feel unwanted?" Yi Hyuk frowned slightly. "No." "You—" Her voice remained calm, but sadness quietly slipped through. "I spent most of my life trying not to inconvenience people with my existence." Something painful twisted inside his chest hearing that. Amara continued softly. "When you're overweight, dark-skinned, and not considered beautiful by normal standards," she shrugged lightly, "you learn quickly that people treat you differently." Yi Hyuk's jaw tightened, because she wasn't wrong, and worse. He remembered his own first reaction watching her on CCTV. Amara laughed quietly to herself. "The funny part is, once I started losing weight and making money," she looked up at him directly. "Suddenly everybody decided I was worth noticing." Silence filled the office heavily. Yi Hyuk looked away first, because guilt burned under his skin like fire. Amara noticed instantly, her eyes narrowed slightly. "What?" He stood slowly from the chair. "Nothing." "That wasn't nothing." Yi Hyuk walked toward the window overlooking the city. For the first time in years, words failed him, because the truth sounded ugly now. Amara watched him carefully, then realization slowly crossed her face. Her expression changed immediately. "Oh my God." Yi Hyuk closed his eyes briefly. "Did it too?" Silence, painful silence. "You judged me too," she whispered. Yi Hyuk turned slowly toward her. "It wasn't like that." "Then explain it." He struggled for the first time since knowing her, actually struggled. "I saw you helping someone," he admitted quietly. And instead of respecting it, his jaw tightened painfully. "I focused on how you looked," stared at him silently. Every insecurity she buried suddenly rose back to the surface, the old version of herself. The invisible version. Yi Hyuk stepped closer carefully. "I was wrong. But you still thought it." "Yes." Honesty hurt worse somehow. Amara laughed softly, not amused, heartbroken. "Wow." "Amara, no." She shook her head slowly. "Don't." He stopped immediately. Her eyes glistened now, though she fought hard not to cry. "You know what's crazy?" Yi Hyuk stayed silent. "If I looked like this back then," she gestured toward herself, "you would have noticed me immediately." The truth crushed him because it was partially true, and both of them knew it. Amara grabbed her bag quickly. "I need to go home." Yi Hyuk moved instinctively. "Let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." Her voice remained calm, but disappointment cut through every word. "You were just like everybody else." That sentence shattered something inside him, because somehow her disappointment felt unbearable, more unbearable than enemies. more unbearable than violence. Amara walked toward the office door, but before leaving she stopped briefly. "You know what hurts most?" Yi Hayek looked at her desperately now. "You saw kindness first." Silence. Still looked past it. Then she walked away. The door closed quietly behind her. Yi Hayek stood frozen inside the office long after she left. For the first time in years, the mighty Kang Yi Hayek felt truly ashamed of himself. Not embarrassed, ashamed. Later that night, Amara sat alone inside her apartment while Denise listened quietly from the couch. "So he admitted it." Amara nodded weakly. "At least he told the truth. That doesn't make it hurt less." Denise sighed deeply. "I'm sorry, baby." Amara rubbed her face tiredly. "The worst part is, her voice cracked slightly. I actually started believing he saw me differently." Denise stayed quiet because she knew Amara wasn't just talking about Yi Hayek. She was talking about years of rejection, years of invisibility, years of feeling unwanted. Amara looked toward the window silently. "I don't think I can do this." Meanwhile, across the city, Yi Hayek sat alone inside his mansion replaying the CCTV footage again. The same footage, the same rainy night. But this time he watched differently. He noticed the exhaustion in Amara's movements, the way nobody helped her, the way people walked past without seeing her, and worst of all, he noticed himself cold, dismissive, blind. Yi Hayek suddenly stood and hurled the whiskey glass across the room violently. It shattered against the wall. Min-seok rushed into the office immediately. "Boss?" Yi Hayek's breathing remained controlled despite the rage burning inside him. "I hurt her." Min-seok blinked slightly. That sentence alone sounded unbelievable coming from him. Yi Hayek rubbed both hands over his face slowly. "She looked at me like everyone else eventually does." "Do you mean?" Disappointed. The room fell quiet. Min-seok chose his next words carefully. "Then fix it." Yi Hayek laughed bitterly. "I don't know how." For the first time since becoming one of the most feared men in Korea, Kang Yi Hayek truly understood helplessness. For 3 straight weeks, Amara avoided Kang Yi Hayek completely. She ignored flowers, ignored calls, ignored invitations. Even when black orchids arrived at her office every morning, she told her staff to remove them before she entered the building. Still, somehow his presence lingered everywhere. A donation anonymously paid for an entire women's shelter renovation under Cole Aura's foundation. A struggling employee's medical bills disappeared overnight. Community centers suddenly received brand new supplies. Yi Hayek never attached his name, but Amara knew, of course she knew, that was the problem. He listened too carefully. One evening, Denise walked into Amara's office carrying another bouquet with a dramatic sigh. This man is either deeply in love or clinically insane. Barely looked up from her laptop. Throw them away. Denise sat the flowers down anyway. You don't mean that. Amara closed her eyes tiredly. He judged me before he even knew me. Yes. And now suddenly I'm worthy because I changed. Denise stayed quiet briefly, then asked softly, "Did he only notice your appearance?" Amara hesitated, because honestly, no, that was what complicated everything. Yi Hayek noticed things nobody else paid attention to: when she skipped meals, when she overworked herself, when she felt anxious before interviews. He remembered small details most people forgot instantly, and somehow that made things worse. Denise leaned against the desk carefully. "I think he noticed your appearance first," she admitted honestly. "But I also think he fell in love with who you are afterward." Amara laughed weakly. "That doesn't erase the first part." "No," Denise agreed softly, "but people are complicated." Amara could answer. Her assistant suddenly rushed into the office looking panicked. "Miss Cole," Amara frowned immediately. "What happened?" "There's a situation downstairs." "What kind of situation?" The assistant swallowed hard. "Kang Yi Hayek." Amara closed her eyes instantly. Of course. Outside Cole Aura headquarters, dozens of employees pretended not to stare while Yi Hayek stood silently near the entrance, holding no bodyguards, no weapons, and no usual terrifying energy. Just exhaustion. The second Amara stepped outside, everybody nearby suddenly became very interested in fake work. Yi Hayek looked at her carefully. "You've been avoiding me." "Yes, at least you're honest." Amara crossed her arms. "What do you want? To talk?" "We already talked." "No," he said quietly. "Spoke, I listened." Something about his voice sounded different today, less controlled, more human. Amara noticed immediately. Yi Hyuk reached slowly into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a printed screenshot from the CCTV footage, the rainy night. Amara helping the old cleaner, she froze instantly. Yi Hyuk looked down at the picture carefully. I used to watch this every night. Amara stayed silent. I kept trying to understand why it bothered me so much. Voice lowered further. The truth is, looked directly at her. I hated myself for what I saw. Pain crossed Amara's face briefly. Yi Hyuk stepped closer. When I first watched this footage, I saw a woman I didn't consider beautiful enough for my world. Honesty hurt, but he continued anyway. Then over time, I realized something horrifying. Amara's throat tightened. The most beautiful thing in that video had nothing to do with your appearance. Silence. You helped someone when nobody cared. Nobody was watching. Nobody rewarded you. His jaw flexed painfully. And I still looked past your humanity because I was shallow enough to focus on everything else first. The employee secretly listening nearby looked emotional already. Amara swallowed carefully. Yi Hyuk's eyes looked almost tortured now. I can't change how I saw you that night, he admitted quietly. But I swear to you I have never seen anyone more clearly since. For one dangerous second, Amara almost forgave him right there, and that terrified her. She stepped back slowly. You hurt me. I know. You made me feel invisible again. His voice cracked slightly. I know. Amara looked away quickly before emotions overwhelmed her. I don't know if I can trust this. Yi Hyuk answered immediately. Then don't, she blinked. What? Don't trust me easily. His eyes stayed locked onto hers. Make me earn it. Stretched heavily between them, then Amara whispered softly, why are you trying this hard? Yi Hyuk laughed once, broken, tired, honest. 'Cause losing you feels worse than any pain I've ever survived. That sentence nearly destroyed her composure. But before she could answer, cameras suddenly exploded nearby. Reporters, dozens of them, rushed toward the building entrance immediately. Miss Cole, Mr. Kang, are you two dating? Is marriage happening soon? The chaos intensified instantly. Bodyguards tried controlling the crowd while reporters shouted questions over one another. And for the first time since meeting Amara, Yi Hyuk looked uncertain. Not because of danger, because of her. He leaned closer carefully. I'll leave if you want. Amara stared at him for a long second, then quietly said, stay. Something emotional crossed his face immediately, small, powerful, devastating. Months later, snow fell softly across Seoul while luxury cars lined the entrance of the Grand Hanseong Hotel. Inside, the city's elite gathered for the largest charity event of the year hosted by Cole Aura's foundation. Massive crystal chandeliers glowed above elegant crowds while cameras flashed endlessly near the ballroom entrance. And standing at the center of it all was Amara Cole, radiant, powerful, untouchable. Her silver gown shimmered under the lights while reporters called her name from every direction. One interviewer smiled brightly. Miss Cole, your foundation has now helped over 10,000 women internationally. How does that feel? Amara smiled softly, like healing is possible. Across the ballroom, Yi Hyuk watched her quietly. Completely ruined, everybody around him noticed. The feared Mafia boss who once inspired terror now followed Amara with his eyes like gravity controlled him. Min-seok sighed beside him. You're smiling again. Yi Hyuk barely looked away from her. She's happy. You sound proud. I am. Min-seok shook his head in disbelief. 1 year ago, Yi Hyuk would have destroyed anyone suggesting a woman could change him this deeply. Now, he looked almost peaceful near her. Amara finally noticed him watching. Their eyes met across the ballroom. And despite everything she smiled, small, soft, real. Yi Hyuk's heartbeat stumbled immediately. The tiny smile felt more valuable than power itself. Later that evening, the ballroom slowly emptied while snow continued falling outside. Amara stepped onto the quiet hotel terrace needing fresh air after hours of interviews and speeches. Cold wind brushed gently against her skin. Then footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn around. You always find me. Yi Hyuk stopped beside her. I always look. Silence settled comfortably between them, different now, softer. Amara glanced sideways at him. You've been unusually well-behaved lately. Trying, she laughed quietly. That sounds painful for you. It is. Comfortable silence followed. Then Yi Hyuk slowly reached into his coat. Amara noticed immediately. What's that? Without answering, he held out a glass frame carefully. Amara froze. Inside the frame sat the old dirty napkin from the rainy night outside his mansion. The same napkin she used while tying the garbage bags closed beside the elderly cleaner. Her breath caught instantly. "You kept this?" Yi Hyuk looked almost embarrassed. "Yes. For a whole year." "Yes," stared at him in disbelief. "That's insane." "Probably." Snowflakes drifted slowly around them while he held the frame carefully between both hands. Then, to her complete shock, Kang Yi Hyuk lowered himself onto one knee. Amara's eyes widened immediately. "Yi Hyuk, I spent my whole life believing power made people valuable," he said quietly. The ballroom windows behind them filled quickly as guests noticed what was happening outside. People gasped. Phones lifted. Whispers spread instantly, but Yi Hyuk ignored everyone except her. Then one exhausted woman carrying trash bags destroyed everything I thought I understood. Amara's chest tightened painfully. Yi Hyuk looked up at her with completely unguarded eyes. No mafia boss. No cold king. No terrifying legend. Just a man deeply in love. "I was blind when fate placed something precious directly in front of me," he whispered. "And now I'll spend the rest of my life proving I finally see you clearly." Burned Amara's eyes unexpectedly. Yi Hyuk continued softly. "Amara Cole," voice nearly broke. "Please marry me." The entire ballroom watched through the glass in stunned silence. The mighty Kang Yi Hyuk kneeling publicly for a woman he once overlooked. Amara looked down at him for several long seconds. Then finally she laughed softly, warm, beautiful, emotional. Yi Hyuk looked terrified suddenly. "What?" Amara carefully took the framed napkin from his hands. "You really kept garbage for a year." A few people inside the ballroom laughed emotionally. Yi Hyuk smiled nervously for the first time in his life. Amara shook her head slowly. "You're unbelievable." Then gently, she placed one hand against his cheek. The same feared man who terrified entire cities leaned into her touch instantly. Amara's eyes softened. "You hurt me badly." Pain flashed across his face again. "I know." But she smiled faintly through tears. "You loved me loudly afterward." Emotion completely shattered whatever control he had left. Amara looked around at the horrified elites staring through the glass walls, then back down at the most feared mafia boss in Korea kneeling at her feet. And finally she whispered, "Stand up before people think you've lost your mind." Yi Hyuk smiled slowly, completely ruined, completely hers, and for the first time in his life, Kang Yi Hyuk happily stayed on his knees. If you enjoyed this emotional story of love, regret, redemption, and unforgettable transformation, subscribe to the channel for more powerful narration stories like this one.